All right, episode 30. We have hit a milestone. This is the 30th episode of Digging Deeper, and we get to celebrate with a first-time guest, none other than Mr. Pastor Mike Crandall, dear
Mr.
friend
Pastor,
and mentor.
yeah. Yes.
So welcome to Digging Deeper.
Thanks.
Yesterday was the closeout of cryptocurrency, and I spoke about the widow who just gave sacrificially, and we were thinking about examples of sacrificial generosity. Not even a moment goes by without saying, oh man, Harvest Church, Mike and Colleen Crandall. And so we got to share your story a little bit with video, and thought it'd be fun to let people watching or listening just hear a little bit more behind the scenes of the decision that now so many people that come to Rise City, they don't even know that story. That's been 6 years that this facility has not always been Rise City Church, and Brandon's not always been the pastor. There's a lot of legacy before that. So you mentioned the video yesterday, Mike, that you've been here in this area, and particularly even here at 12150 Woodside,
right,
doing ministry for 40 years.
40 plus, yeah.
40 plus years. Man, give us a little backstory. What is that involved before we get to the Rise part of it? I mean, 40 years, like...
Well, I started out, and my wife and I both came to faith in like 1969 during the Jesus movement, and wanted to be involved in ministry. And
were you sober when you came to Jesus?
Yes, totally sober, totally straight. A mama's boy, actually, if you want to know the truth.
Yeah.
And then I moved out with mom and in with Colleen, and she helped keep me on the straight and narrow, and we did that for each other, and got involved in youth ministry at our church. We were at the Presbyterian Church in El Cajon.
Okay.
So that was kind of interesting. We kind of were stronger gospel than the whole church was put together. Yeah. Had about 50 kids in our student group. It was fun, and then kind of moved around. We had an opportunity then to be involved in a church called First Bible Baptist Church of El Cajon.
That's like a tongue twister.
Yeah, which was fun when you were door knocking, and we did a lot of door knocking.
Okay.
And and people look at us like, okay, what's next? So anyway, got involved.
So they didn't take you up on a lot of your invitations?
Some people, people used to be very open to someone coming to the door. Now it's really difficult to open the door. They're just not going to do it. But anyway, started to work at the church as the custodian student pastor.
Oh, okay.
So I think
they kind of merge those two roles together.
Yeah, it's like you can vacuum during the week and you can do kids on Sunday.
Cool.
And just kind of moved along the line. And so I've had every job. I was the visitation pastor. We were the married couples pastors or leaders. And then I was associate pastor. And eventually, about 1994, the pastor that was here left, and they said, okay, we're going to give you a shot. And then so it was off to the races then. So
wow.
All the things, and I was a good pastor, but a struggle as a leader and setting course and direction, which you're really good at. But I just, we loved people. And as Colleen mentioned, we just had a really close-knit church. It was a couple hundred people, maybe at the best 350, something like that, up and down a bit. We had a lot of military folks.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is on Wednesday nights, we had just a real open kind of service time. We usually had 45 adults and 50 kids, and we could just do whatever. Sometimes we'd worship a lot, sometimes we'd pray a lot, sometimes we'd teach a lot. Yeah. Sometimes we'd eat. It was just that kind of maybe a family reunion kind of style of church. So that's we had a long course of that. Had several name changes. We got rid of First Bible Baptist Church, and we became Harvest Temple, which Temple had a good run in the Midwest for a while until some bad things happened to places called Temple.
Did you name it Temple based upon like a movement of the Midwest? Because you're out here in the West.
Yes, our pastor then was from the Midwest. And so Baptist Temple. So it became Harvest Baptist Temple. And then it became Harvest Christian Fellowship. And then just before the merger, we rebranded and called it just Harvest Church.
Harvest Church, yeah.
Yeah, so that's where Dave Daly came in. And we went from Sunday school to life groups to 5 touches from the parking lot to the sanctuary. And we did a bunch of different things. And it was good. And it really was a prep for the merger.
So you start custodial youth pastor, eventually become a lead pastor. Mm-hmm. You hold the role as lead pastor for
25 years almost. 25 years? Yeah, just nearly 25.
Yeah, and at some point in that process, you guys sold land, which actually paid off.
Yeah, the land right next door, where the storage place is.
Yeah, and so
we sold that, and it paid off this portion, the building, and this 5 acres on this side of the the road out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then at some point, you, the elder team, began to just consider like whether or not you were maximizing the space for kingdom impact, I think is how you said it. But then there was the hiring of David Daly, which was trying to really try to kind of shift a little focus and reach out and maybe grow the church.
Exactly. And Dave had a plan, and he was our executive pastor.
Okay.
Even though he was 25 years my junior, but still it worked good, and we had a good staff, and we had some good success. But the challenge was when you were about 200 or 300 people. In this building's 30,000 square feet.
Yeah.
So every time we had to do something physically, 30,000 square feet was just like, okay, going to buy some carpet, 30,000 square feet. That's like a ton of money.
Yeah.
It's a ton of money for a
That's why we
smaller
got rid of
church.
the carpet.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and we had got rid of some of it just before the merge
Right.
and done the hallways and all those kinds of things. But so after a season of doing the rebranding and doing some different things, and I was really excited, and it was really, really good. We just came to a kind of a cycle, a life cycle where it's like, this thing is just not, my heart was to, if we had to have a church of 500, we could really take care of the building for one, and we could impact our community.
Yeah.
But we just never quite got there.
Yeah. And so I assume then there was conversations and maybe even some kind of urges that you started to sense from the Holy Spirit, both you, maybe the elders, as far as if this kind of rebranding and kind of almost relaunch doesn't take effect like we hope to with hiring David and things like that, what was the process of beginning to ask, so then what's next?
Well, that's exactly what we did. We just, my wife and I especially just started praying, what's next? I was 62 years old when we kind of started that process. What's next? What's next for us personally, and what's next for Harvest? We coveted this place. We loved it. It was like, for us, it was like a cold you never got over. It was just like it had us.
Yeah.
And we had it and we loved it. So, but we just prayed and we began to ask God. And we had several opportunities to do different mergers, and mergers were kind of hot for a while.
Okay.
Before we met with you guys. And there was a couple different ones that they just didn't ring right.
But there was some point then the merger prospect kind of started to enter you guys' thinking process. And so you started to pray through that, entertain some possibilities.
And then there was a budgetary pressure of, David said, look, it's not working and you guys can't afford to pay me anymore. So what do we do next? And we said, well, we're just going to keep praying. We could scheme and plan, but we just said, let's keep praying. And then one day David came and said, hey, I got an idea. I heard about this church, and would you think about, they're over in Santee, and they're kind of going really good, and they're kind of fresh. And, it's a little bit hard to admit that if they're fresh, maybe we weren't fresh, even as we walked around the building, we realized, there's some rooms that could have been utilized, and we had storage in there, and an old building. This building was built in 1950.
Bowling alley, right?
1959,
Stars of bowling
I think.
Alley. Yeah.
Yeah, so it had a certain, like grandma's house had a certain smell about it, and that kind of thing. That didn't.
I remember that smell.
Yeah, it was just a little dusty, musty kind of a smell.
Yeah.
So
I mean, before we kind of move to the actual kind of merger or engagement in that, for you and Colleen, you'd been here as lead pastor 25 years. You're seeing something that you love. There's still such a strong core family feel.
Yeah.
God is being honored. Ministry still being done. I mean, what was that like just in your own mind, coming to that place of saying, we might need to move this place of kind of handing over the reins to another church or leader? But I mean, I'm sure that's a hard thing as a lead pastor too, to work through some of that stuff.
For that 2-year period where I kept saying, we got to make this work. We're going to make this work. This is my place. I'm not letting this go. I'm not giving it up. I own it.
Yeah.
And I would go to a women's ministry event and they go, what are you doing here? And I'd say, it's my island. Whatever happens here, I have my hand in it or around it, or in, everything that happens, it comes across my desk or across my heart or both. So that was the kind of internal struggle of surrender, which had a little taste of defeat to it, but also a little sense looking back. There was lots of great things that had happened here, lots of lives that were changed, lots of people that were healed and delivered and encouraged and came to faith and all those things. And that was hard to give up.
Yeah.
It was just that idea that, you're not going to be the guy anymore.
Yeah.
And then one of my thoughts was, well, I'm just have to quit, and the church will have to find a new pastor. Which I guess that could have worked. We could have brought in somebody that was young and vivacious and had different ideas. Although we had Dave, and he was kind of like that.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. I think it's important to at least highlight, because, we're living on the back side of this and we see what's gone really well.
Yeah.
But to at least pay attention to that there was a internal struggle, there was pride that you probably had to work through, and just all those types of things. Like, anytime there's a sacrificial decision that's made, don't judge it necessarily fully by its fruit. Realize that there's been a lot of angst and probably internal strife and battling before getting to that decision.
Right.
And I just really, I think I'm grateful to hear that, because I know someday I'm not going to pastor this church,
right?
And we may even hand the keys over to another church, and to know that that's not going to be easy if God calls us to that. Right. And I just appreciate your honesty in sharing it.
Yeah. When we did merge, and this skips some of the steps, but we hired a new student church, a new children's pastor.
Yeah.
And she's 38 years my junior, but she became a really good friend to me. And after the merge and during the process and building and all that stuff, she really encouraged me, which was a surprise that, she would be my encouragement. And she said, you have to realize you're grieving a loss. You're in a grieving process, and she would say, you need counseling. And I'd say, I don't need counseling. It's kind of a, baby boomer thing to a millennial. I was like, you should have some counseling. So I said, no, I don't need any counseling. I'll work through it. God will work it through it.
So I remember when David approached me, and there's a whole, backstory to that Dave and I got connected through him buying my house that we had. We moved out here and all this. It's just crazy how God had organized all that. But he approached us and said, hey, I've got this essentially this proposition. Would you be interested in that? And I remember him connecting us to have dinner together at your house. And then by the end of that night, it was like, you were like, so you want to do this? And I'm still so floored, and that you were so trusting, but also so open-handed.
Right.
What brought you to that place of saying, I've wrestled through this. I feel like Rise to Church, and I guess, at the time, I guess I was kind of the connecting point of the face to it with my wife, Jamie. But like, what did you sense in your spirit to say, like, let's do this?
Well, we were searching for an answer, and we were searching for a God answer. And we had a couple of opportunities, I said before, and one of them would have been kind of a retirement for me. I could have just walked away. And in a sense, I felt like this isn't my place to sell. I can't just do that.
Yeah.
And when we sat down with you guys at our house, and Colleen and I both, it just seemed like seconds.
It was Jamie, wasn't it?
We just had that.
Jamie,
it was the Holy Spirit.
No, but the Holy Spirit was connecting to my wife.
I know it was both of you, and just your heart and the things you talked about in your church and the things that were going. And one of the things I said, well, I watched you on a video. And
that was the best part.
You're like, one video.
I watched a video. I was like, well, gosh, that's okay.
Yeah. So whatever part that I played in humility and stepping aside and all those things, that was really orchestrated by the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
I can't take much credit for that, other than I did say yes. And one of the things I alluded to is I didn't really know how difficult it was going to be, because I felt like I'd pressed through. I hit the place where you press through and you say yes and you surrender, and it starts moving.
Yeah. We
were almost instantly, on one hand, just so thrilled when we started doing the meeting and the vote and all that kind of stuff, and kind of getting a rhythm with you and Jamie, and your kids were little then, they're out there wrestling on the floor, and we loved that. And the meeting went well, and then the ideas of fixing up the building, and really for us, we want to see this place full of people.
Yeah. And
since then, we have seen so much of changed lives, and it's just, we continue to just be thrilled, no matter what the grieving process or the work process was. We're just thrilled in our spirit that it's just. It's happened. Our dream has come true in a way that we had never imagined it would be. We always dream. When I took over from the pastor before me, I thought, this is going to be it, man. I'm going to come in. I'm going to say I'm going to free this thing up, and it's going to take off. And that lasted about 10 seconds, it seemed like. And then it was just the work of that. And, I was in my 40s or late 30s, and it was just, it was...
Well, I remember when we had the legacy service, and I just remember that auditorium. We barely got it renovated. We kind of wanted to get it all done and ready to go, but we wanted to have a service to really honor what God had done here in this space through Harvest Church and all the way back to First Baptist Bible Belt, whatever.
Yes.
Church, all the way.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was 600-700 people here, and it was just a special moment. And I felt like we were stepping into a story that we were getting to continue, not to restart, because there had been ministry and God had been moving and working, and this was just a new chapter in it. And it was just beautiful to see that there was even such a tight-knit feeling amongst the people here, which I think is attributed to just the way that you did pastor, and with you and Colleen, and how she referenced yesterday, knowing every family, knowing every child, and knowing
where people worked, and all those kinds of things.
And it was just it was a sweet moment, and to see what God has done since then, it has been awesome with life change and community impact. But it also has meant a new role and a new season for you personally.
Yep.
What's that been like?
I've ended up you've given me tremendous freedom, and sometimes people say, "What is Pastor Mike doing?" And you'd say, "Well, I don't know exactly." But I see him doing it with enthusiasm, and people love him, and he's somewhere telling somebody something that they need to know.
Yeah.
So I get to, I feel like a primary focus for Colleen and I both was your family and Pete's family, because your parents weren't here, and his parents weren't here, and Jamie's parents weren't here. So we kind of felt like adopted grandparents.
Yeah.
And we got to pour into your kids some and have a good relationship with them, and the same goes for all the staff. I kind of keep my eye. I don't have an official like, "Hey, how are you doing?" But I have unofficial, "How are you doing?" Oh yeah,
and you talk to any staff member here at Rise City, they've had Mike pop in moments and encouragement or words from the Lord, or that's not your title, but you just do it, and
that's one of the most
people.
Satisfying parts. Of, if when God tells me something, and I can say, "Look, I think God told me this for you." And just recently at one of the men's retreats, I had kind of a word of, a prophetic exhortation, really, for someone. And I said, "Look, this is really serious." And I looked him in the eye and I just laid it on him, and they were like, "Yeah," But then they came back to me and said, "Man, that was a life-changing thing for me." And so that's the kind of thing I'm looking for on a day-to-day basis. And I've helped. I put together most of the IKEA furniture here. And I've hung a bunch
because none of us know how to put IKEA furniture together besides maybe you and Pete.
Yeah, that's my gifting. Too. So I've hung a lot of TVs. I've helped a lot of stuff in children's ministry. And I like to do that. I like helping. I like serving in that way.
Yeah.
And I I'm doing quite a bit of work with life groups. I'm involved in like 4 or 5 of them, sometimes in different ways. And then that's pastoring maybe on a lesser level as far as being up front every Sunday.
Sure.
So,
I mean, the kind of crux of this is looking at the widow. She gave these 2 copper coins, is all she had. And Jesus commended her. We still are telling her story 2,000 years later, even though we don't know her name. She's the widow. And it's a beautiful story, but there's always, that widow's life still was difficult, I'm sure, after she offered those 2 copper coins. I know people are always wrestling with and have fear about, like, if the Lord's prompted me to do something and it just feels like I'm going to lose something, I don't know if I can actually open my hands up and fully do that, because the backside of this could be even more pain, or things might not change, but I feel like God's telling me to. So there's this paralysis of fear that grips a lot of people that prevents them from, 1, being obedient, and 2, sacrificially generous. And I think about in your situation, like, to be the lead pastor, to really shepherd the people, to preach on a weekly basis, and then now, in a very humble term, saying, like, I meet with staff and I put IKEA furniture together sometimes, stuff like that. Like, that is, first off, I just think that's unbelievably commendable to see the way that God has worked in your heart, to be like, it's just like the way I feel like I've been a recipient of, like, you've handed off that leadership and entrusted me, and really taken a step away from something that you were passionate about, good at, and said, but you do it now. And I think whether it's in the realm of financial giving or calling or any of those things, when God prompts you, but fear hold you back. Like, what would you say to people? How do you get over that?
Well, one of the things I had at pastoring is I had a lot of people that I shepherded and helped through different situations in their life, divorces and the loss of children and all those kinds of things. And I realized some of the ways that God works. And I felt like there's two ways we could do this, Mike. You could surrender or God could surrender you. The Jonah story. It's like you can get the wind and answer, or you can be barfed up on the beach, by the whales.
Exactly. All over you. Yeah.
And I wanted to choose the surrender way because I knew God would honor that. And even though sometimes it was hard, it was way better than it could have been.
Yeah.
It could have been just like, okay, you run this thing into the ground now. There's 10 people left here, and now you got to quit. And so the opportunity to blend a family just was very appealing. Yeah. And really, I go back to just the sense of this is the right thing to do from the Holy Spirit. For Colleen and I both, we had that witness. So, sometimes you have a witness for something and your wife's like, I'm not quite there, or the other way around. But both of us just had this was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And then walking that out, it's been just really, really rewarding. And
so really, like encouragement you would make is if people are feeling that I know the right thing to do, I'm just afraid. It's just you got to take the step.
People so many times in counseling would tell me, I know what I should do the right thing, but I'm not going to do it. And I'd say to them, well, please, you're not going to do well going down this course. And I saw lots of people just slam the wall when they could have just turned the wheel, so to speak, and not slam the wall, repented or surrendered or whatever. So I had enough of that to say that I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And so it's just been an incredible, fun journey. And I've talked to people a bit from that have been in different parts of the country, and our merge story is probably the best ones I've ever heard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have the same experience. And I tell people when they talk about mergers, acquisitions, all that kind of stuff, like transparently, they're like, he's still on your staff? Like Mike's still like, how's that possible? Because a lot of times the founder or the lead guy is pretty strong-willed and still has a lot of, and I was like,
and he cannot stop grabbing the wheel.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was like, honestly, the magic in this is, Mike and Colleen just feel like this unbelievable calling by God to be servants, and they're not grabbing at the wheel, and it's so commendable. It's exemplary of humility. But it really is necessary for this thing to have worked the way that it did, because if you have two leaders grappling for
right
leadership and vision, it's just hard. And I think a lot of examples across the country is the leader who hands over the reins to the next leader doesn't really fully hand the keys over.
Right.
And I hope and pray that the story that God's writing here encourages other leaders to be willing to do what you did, but also I hope it means that there's younger leaders, which I hope I embody, that are humble enough to honor and understand that you're not entitled to this,
right.
and you're getting a chance to be a part of a story that was written well in advance of you coming into it. And so I guess I would just, if I don't know if we have people even watch or listen that are pastors that are out there that maybe they're getting closer to retirement, they're trying to figure out what to do, like, what would you say in our story? You'd encourage them and some steps to take as far as maybe in considering looking to a younger leader or an up and coming church to partner with, or whatever that looks like.
Yeah, I'd say for one, don't wait too long, and just really seek the Holy Spirit and seek Him hard about that, and be open to the surrender part. I had some really good support amongst our elder board, the Goodriches and the Turners and the youth chauffeurs and 3 different dailies. The dailies. They were really supportive of me all the way through. Mm-hmm. And at one place in my ministry, I was challenged by somebody, and there was a vote of no confidence. And these guys stood up and said, "Oh, no, Mike's our pastor. Wow. He's got some more time to do." So that closeness and the fact that they were behind whatever we were going to do, I guess it could have bombed, and they still would have been my friends and my brothers and sisters in the faith. So I'd say look to your support system and look to the Lord, and don't wait too long. Don't wait till it's down to, you got 6 grandmas and 2 grandpas and and no money. So, we had some assets, we had some good things that we were able to give, not only physically, financially, but
people,
a spirit,
a spirit too. Yeah,
yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's only strengthened and enhanced what was initially the forming culture of Rice City Church, because we were only 2.5 years old. And now I know that for us, one of the things that it added maturity. It added like diversity of age, because we had just only young families, and now we had more of a life spectrum. There's so many things that the church is absolutely better in who she is currently because of that merger.
Yeah, one of the books we read is a book called Better Together.
Yeah, yeah,
and that the spirit of that book really helped us too in the prep, once we decided that we would go down the road. And I'm thinking back, it was a pretty easy,
It was. Yeah, we did a lot of the conversations and paperwork and all that kind of stuff, and then the vote was actually unanimous by Harvest. So that speaks to even your leadership and the trust that people had in you. That they're like, I think it was like 98 people that showed up to vote that time. It was like 98 said yes. And you're like, wow,
exactly.
And then
there was a handful of people that didn't want to do it.
Yeah,
but their heart was, we're not going to come to the meeting and mess this up.
Yeah,
okay. And it wasn't that they didn't like Rise City. It's just that they just loved a smaller church.
Yeah.
And they could see right away that it was going to be a bigger church.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of an interesting thing and they came to me 2 or 3 like, I would have voted no, but
I remember you and Colleen, like you'd go to houses and you'd talk to people and you just would shepherd and love people and cast vision and even filming this now, we're all recipients of that act of sacrificial generosity.
Yeah, people wanted to know, and they would say, look, we're not sure about this, but if you're sure about it, then we're good with it.
Yeah.
So that was a great respect factor that people had with me. They said, if you think this is good, if you think this is going to be a good kingdom move, I love that word, because kingdom, having a kingdom mindset is one thing, but when it costs you something, it's a little different.
Very true.
And they all paid the price as well, as far as changing the scope of our church. But when I walk in here on Sunday mornings at 7:30 and I feel the buzz and the people coming in, the younger people and the little babies and all that kind of stuff, and hear the music crank up and hear the sermon coming, it's just like I go home with a great sense of satisfaction every Sunday.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what, as we get ready to kind of close, what's next for Mike and Colleen? Not next in terms of like location or job, but like you're still on staff, but like as you move into the kind of this next season, what are you hoping the Lord will use you to do as you continue just to be a kingdom-minded person and someone that is marked with a generous spirit? And your wife is never going to stop. I mean, she's unbelievable the ways that she pours into people and gives. But like, what are you guys dreaming about and still excited about in this next stage?
It's funny. I made the comment to her that it takes the same kind of faith that we had early on, as we now are older and have some health issues, and we don't have quite the energy at 2:00 in the afternoon we used to have. And she's still teaching, which is an energetic kind of a thing. And she's had some problems recently physically with her legs and all those things. We just want to be used right up until we exit this planet. And if it was someplace else, it would be we'd have to be a burning bush to get us to go someplace else. And this is our place. For me, especially, this is my home. Colleen has a great ministry at her school. We've prayed for principals and moms and babies and all that kind of stuff on her campus, and even when she worked up in LA. So there's lots of opportunities.
Yeah.
So I just want to keep loving. I want to be used in the prophetic voice to be able to share people, hey, look, I think this is what God is saying, and to offer that as a gift. Because, when you're searching for guidance and somebody comes to you and said, I was praying about you, or God spoke to me about you, and here it is, and their face lights up and go, wow, I have a witness in my heart. That's the word of the Lord for me, because I think that's something that is, part of the New Testament church. So I'm looking forward to that, and whatever way. Yesterday I toted the ice cream truck over for one of the young couples in our church, and they did a block party.
That's
and
so cool.
I just facilitated that, and so they were really excited, and they ended up giving away a bunch of ice cream in their whole neighborhood, not just to the block party people. But I said, look, get rid of this ice cream. We've already bought it. Get it out there.
Get it out there.
And they gave it all away, and
That's cool.
met some people, and it opened some doors for them. So that part of facilitating is what I want to continue to do.
So good.
So, yeah.
I mean, I love you, and I'm super grateful for you. And I think in today's world, in ministry, the term pastor has been replaced with leader.
Right.
And therefore, the leader is more in alignment with a business CEO.
Right.
And not the biblical definition of pastor.
Right.
You are, and more need to be, the biblical definition of pastor.
Well, that's my heart, and that's what I love. And I would say that from time to time, I've said to you, I'm really proud of you, which in my mind puts me like in a older perspective. But I think you have a great pastor's heart, which makes it really, you're a good leader. You're a good planner. You look ahead. You do those kinds of things. You see the next thing that the community is dealing with, even right now, some of the things that you guys were talking about in your meeting yesterday.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, you want people to do well, which is a great satisfaction for me that I handed over what essentially was my life's work, our life's work, all the people that I mentioned before, and my wife, to someone that's got a heart to love people and do the other stuff too. So it's a good thing.
Well, thank you. And the best is yet to come, right? That's the
it's getting gooder and gooder and gooder.
Gooder and gooder and gooder here.
Exactly.
That's what we said here in Lakeside. So
East County,
East County. So cool. Well, thanks for sharing a little bit of the story. Man, if you do attend Rise City Church, you want to hear more, just be able to be ministered to by Pastor Mike. I know that you always welcome people coming up to you, handshakes, hugs, and hey, man, to talk. So make sure and do that. And it's an honor to be a part of the story God's writing here.
Yeah, call me. I'm available.
All right. Yeah. So, well, thanks for joining in on this episode. Next week, it's going to be exciting. Vision Sunday is this Sunday. So want to encourage you, if you are in the San Diego area, come to church. 9 or 11 Vision Sunday to hear the things that really feel God is moving us as a church to advance in, and how that impacts all of us. And that's going to be exciting, and really going to be highlighting stuff with Next Gen. So next, Digging Deeper, I'm going to have our new student pastor, Anthony Hall, joining with me, which will be fun. And he's a blast. He is. He's fun. He's already fitting right in, and we love him here. So
I've already been to tacos with him. So
yeah, you've given him all the East County layout and stuff. So yeah, make sure and join in. It's a great way to meet who Anthony is, and we hope to see you this Sunday. And yeah, it's such a joy to do what we do. So, all right, we'll talk to you next week.